Morning Express it is, and it's just gone slightly after 7 right here in Nairobi, Kenya. Coming to you live from our studios right here on Mombasa Road and reaching 11 countries within the region and of course all over the world. In case you're streaming, it's time for Person of Interest. And this morning, our person of interest is the Salaries and Remuneration Commission Chair, none other than Serem, who is a lady who definitely is tough talking, but also knows what her mandate is. And in case you have any questions for her, feel free to text them or to send them via Twitter. We're also going to be opening up the phone lines later on in case you'd like to ask her questions, maybe regarding her role and the commission, especially because there's sometimes been some confusion of what their mandate is, but we'd like to clear that today. But first of all, as usual, as you know, on Person of Interest, we'd like to know who the person is. And welcome to the studio. Thank you for joining us, Madam Serem.
Thank you,
And I
Michael.
appreciate, especially because I know you had a slight cold, and your voice was playing games on you.
It still is. I hope it will be clearer this morning.
But at least we can hear, and that's good. Thank you very much for coming into the studio.
Thank you for hosting me.
So as usual, we'd like to start off with just knowing who Serem is. Where did she grow up? Where did she go to school? Yeah, and how she got to where she is. But let's start with where you grew up.
Right. I'm Serem, as you all know, but I have other names. I'm Jip Kemboy. That's a name my mother gave me when I was born some years ago. I have a bit of an history. But I grew up in Uasin Gishu, around, maybe the area you know is Burnt Forest.
Right.
But we are slightly below Burnt Forest, a place called Bayete, where I grew up in most part of my year. But I was born in Nandi district. We simply moved to Uasin Gishu after the independence in 1963. That tells you I was born way after, way below.
I must say that you look quite young. You've managed to keep very young. I don't know if it's the mursik that has kept you strong.
Well, it's living simplicity. I think when you make life simple, it's easy to live, you know, a good life.
Okay.
Right.
What are some of the childhood memories you remember? What stands out for you?
I grew up from a very religious home. My father and mother were very religious. We are Adventists up till this day. I am still a very active member of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And that is, I owe it all to my parents who brought me up in a very religious atmosphere. So I would only say the much I knew at home is the togetherness, being a very unified system. My father had 2 wives, but you wouldn't have known which child belongs to which mother. So we literally grew up together, sharing. I learned to share. We were very honest within ourselves because those were virtues that my father and mother established at very early age. Extremely disciplined, being a Christian environment, and indeed having settled in an environment that was fairly developed. We were expected to live in certain kind of lifestyles, basically to be fit, both the Christian life and the kind of settlement that was brought in after the Wazungus left, because that's the area that my father settled in. Okay. My primary school was a walking distance of about 3 kilometers. And so we did the walking every morning. Weather notwithstanding, we didn't have the benefits of being dropped to school. So in a way, you learned, you know, to be disciplined. And that indeed also exposed us to learn to be independent and to manage our lives within the prescription of being in school early, walking, whether there is rain or sunshine, sometimes going without any lunches because going back home was a little too far for us. Yeah, so in a way, I learned that self-management right from the very beginning. Apparently within my family setup, my leadership skills kind of came out so naturally, even as a young person. I found myself leading the worship at home. I was more outspoken within the family. The firstborn? I am not the firstborn. I have a sister who was older than me, but she was a little quiet. So I took most of the talking. I took most of the negotiation with my father and my mother. And that also means I took more of the beatings, because when you're more exposed and you talk more, then certainly you make more mistakes, and therefore you get most of the beatings. My mother was a disciplinarian. And
so would you say, based on your experience, would you say leaders are born or they're made? Given that your leadership is already coming to the surface at a very young age.
It's both. I would say there is the natural leadership that an individual simply drives, you know, even before you go into a learning environment. And basically, training simply re-emphasizes what has already come out naturally. It's more easier to have a leader that has a natural attributes of leadership, and therefore develop that individual into, you know, the kind of leaders that you read now. Most of the leaders that we had within the community were people who never went stepped in any school. Right. But they came out, they were outstanding. Able to lead. Yeah. You would even tell within the community that if there is an issue, you would always refer to a certain elder, not because they were exposed to any leadership skills, but that was naturally a natural attribute. Okay. And I do believe that most of those who come out outstanding are more natural leaders, and they simply reinforce what they have learned through exposure and training. Okay. Yeah.
You've mentioned that you grew up in a fairly religious home, and those are some of the things that possibly influence your culture and your value system.
Absolutely.
How has that played out to where you are now in terms of, you know, that benefit you? What do you see and reflect back to that kind of upbringing?
Yeah. I think what you learn while young, and I believe absolutely what the Bible says, that teach a child
in the way that
they should go. And when they grow old, they will never forget that. Right. I look at issues of integrity. Truly, it's very hard to teach somebody integrity. These are internal values that ought to have come out through your culture, you know, and the orientation within a home. I personally, I think that whatever my father taught me, the kind of values that I picked through the entire orientation of my childhood, within the church setup, and the kind of association that we made, and basically knowing that my life is not complete within myself, but I have to share it with my larger family, because with a larger family, then you have more responsibilities and the expectations are higher. And this is what I see myself, or what I see driving me even in this present position, because I live to know that life is not about myself. It's about others. If you make a difference in somebody else's life, I think it's more satisfying than coming out as a leader. You own everything. You seem to be the only one driving. I believe in group building and enhancing everybody else's skills.
Okay. Yeah. What did you ever envisage yourself being in a public figure when you were growing up? What did you dream of becoming as you were a young girl, you know, growing up?
Honestly, I think all I needed to do in life was, can I make a difference in a community, in a society? I wanted leadership that would always drive change, you know, bringing about enhancing the standard of living, empowering the young people, ensuring that there is harmony in a society, you know, that there is peace. I participated a lot in a family talk of if there were any conflicts, that I would be the one to bring peace, that they will always consult me. Up till this day, my father will not make a decision unless he has involved me in the whole process. So in a way, I wanted leadership that will impact in other people's lives positively. And simplicity for that matter. I was the first lady to go to the university within my village. But that didn't change my lifestyle. I still related with the lowest within the community. When schools closed, the community, the neighborhood knew that Sarah has arrived, because I would reach to every home I will take breakfast in most of the family setups.
So you'd call
it
yourself
didn't
a
matter.
sociable person?
I am a very sociable person. You know, far from what people think now, that this is an iron lady, that she's senseless. That is absolutely far from who I am. I like people. I like to relate with them. I like to make a difference.
Okay. And we'll come to your mandate and what you do in a short while, but maybe tell us a little bit more about your family, married, children.
Yes, I got married some times back. Unfortunately, I'm widowed. That is 10 years down the line. But even then, I have had a very wonderful family. I have 4 girls and an adopted son. They are all of age. My last born baby, I still call her baby because she's my baby, is 26 years.
Wow, last born.
Last born.
You must give us your secret for how you still look so young with a last born of 26.
Enjoy life, you know, just live simple and make the most of it by laughing out. I like to, I don't take life seriously.
Really?
I don't, believe me.
We'll come to that, but one would obviously find it hard to believe that you don't take life seriously, especially given some of the statements that you make in public, given your job description, but we'll come to that.
Depending on the circumstances, what I would tell you right away, SRC's job is a very demanding one. It can be emotionally draining. But SRC and Sarah of my home are 2 different persons. I will do my job as is expected of me. I believe in driving a job with passion. If I believe in something, I will drive it to the end of it. Yeah, and it has to be right. I keep asking myself, is it right? Can I move with it? If it is, I will. And it does not really matter whether you like it or not, because I know that in this world, you are here not to probably make popular decisions, but it's got to be right. Sometimes it may not be right for somebody else, but for as long as it's for the better good, for the majority of those that you serve, I think that's the direction we should all take.
Okay, so what does...
besides that, I will enjoy life. I will laugh it out. I will not carry the burden of my office to my house. Absolutely not. With the minute I land in my house, then I live my social life.
Mom, not
they
SRC
see mom.
chair.
Yeah, they see mom. I have my grandchildren. 2 of my girls are married, and so I have grandchildren. I spend quite a bit of time with them, and that makes my life.
So what does Sarah Serem do to unwind? What do you do to laugh it off? What do you do just to, you know, be yourself? They always say there's that little boy or that little girl in every one of us. And what do you do to develop and just, you know, have that little girl come out?
One, I love to fellowship. So I, of course, passionately believe in what I believe, the religious obligations. I go to church. So I worship and I like to sing and to praise. Besides that, I engage with my friends. I socialize a lot. I have a set of friends that we'll meet once in a while. I have individual friends whom we would sit for a cup of tea or dinner and literally unwind. I spend quite a bit of time with my children. If I go to my married girls, you'll find me on the floor with my grandchildren. They enjoy my presence. They already know me. I have one who is slightly over 2 years and one who is 1 year, but they know the Nana.
Grandma is around.
Yes, grandma is around. The minute I open the door, they hear my voice and we are on the ground, on the floor, laughing it out. And that's what makes me.
All right, do you have like a favorite dish, favorite food that you enjoy?
Believe me, I like githeri.
Wow.
There's a special mokimo that's made with ripe bananas and njahe.
Oh yes, the sweet mokimo.
It was not my original food because, of course, from where I come from, we eat ugali and mursik. But that's not my favorite. My favorite is githeri and irio.
Wonderful.
Acquired.
Do you cook?
I do. I enjoy cooking when I have time.
Okay.
But over time, that becomes a delegated authority.
And
Except
also
when
with
I
the
have my
responsibilities
friends.
that you have, yes.
When I have my friends, I like to be in the kitchen and to cook myself.
Okay.
Because I like them to enjoy my meal.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, in case you're joining us now, our person of interest today is the SRC chair, that's Sarah Serem. Remember, your questions are welcome via Twitter, or also you can call. We're going to be opening up the phone lines. But now we want to move to your capacity as the chair of the Salaries and Remuneration Commission. And just in case you've not had her or seen her in action, we'd just like to play you some of the duties and some of the declarations she makes even in public. And she mentioned earlier on, she's not the iron lady that you may see, but she certainly knows what she's there for and knows what she's there to do. So here are just some of the excerpts of what Sarah Serem does.
And besides the mandate, there is an absolute independence. We are not subject to any authority, not even the parliamentarians, not even the executive. It is extremely important for you to know that the commissions that were set are independent, so that whatever we undertake, we have a total responsibility and obligation in owning every decision that we have made and for the benefit of these Kenyans. May I again remind you that the salary that we did set for parliamentarians, they are not drawing anything more than what we set. Every advice given, they are not drawing anything more than the advice. If there is any mismanagement in it, there are other agencies within the government that have the responsibility, and the Constitution mandates them to follow up to see if there is any misuse. As for SRC, we have advised, we have set, and that's what we stand for.
All right, tough talking, iron lady appearing, Sarah Serem, who loves Mokimo. But now we move away from the Mokimo and into the job description. First of all, let's start with possibly understanding fully the job of the SRC, given that this was, it came with a new constitution, and of course it's a new institution that we are not used to, and of course the expectations are very high of what you're to deliver. But let's start with, first of all, the mandate of the SRC. Yeah.
I think the Constitution is very clear as to what is expected. Twofold. One is to set and regularly review the salaries and benefits for all state officers. And the state officers is also defined within the Constitution. Both the executive, the legislative, the commissions that were established, all form the state officers. So our responsibility is to determine the salaries and the benefits that they draw on a monthly and on an annually basis. For the rest of the other public officers, we have a responsibility to advise. And the advice here is also tied to certain responsibilities. We have principles within which we have to operate in, and which is also set within the Constitution. One of it is to ensure that as we set, as we advise, that the total public wage bill is fiscally sustainable. So that's what drives the kind of decisions that we make. Yeah, the kind of conflicts that you've seen us go through. It's basically with the intent to ensure that the wage bill within the public sector is fiscally sustainable. Okay. The other principle that is also outlined within the Constitution is to ensure that the public sector is able to attract and retain the skills required to undertake their services. That there should be performance and productivity, and this is crucial because it considers the fact that you cannot consume what you have not produced. So performance and productivity is one of the principles, and that we operate within a transparent and fair way of handling things.
Okay. Yeah. Now, with state officers, you have the mandate and the jurisdiction to determine, and in some cases, advice only. Let's start with determine. What guides you on how to determine possibly what somebody should earn, and vis-a-vis what another one maybe is earning less? What guidelines are there?
Right. Michael, when we came in, the one thing that we had to address were the disparities within the public sector.
Absolutely.
And the disparities arose obviously because there were different agencies that were setting up the salaries. And we also noticed that there were no basis, there was no framework within which the same operations were undertaken. So the first thing that SRC decided was to set a principle of determination. And the only acceptable one, which we thought is a worldwide acceptable system, is undertaking the job evaluation. So we purposed that for us to make a decision, we have to do a job evaluation. And that is what we did for the state officers. Prior to the new government coming in, we quickly undertook a job evaluation, and that kind of gave us a framework within which to set. We also moved to do a salary survey. And salary survey for this matter meant that we're looking at the benchmarks within and outside this country, looking at the economies within the world map, and basically linking every determination and the setting and the advice on the strength of the economy, because that was not happening. We are where we are today because every setting, every determination did not look into, can we afford, can we sustain? So we're basically driven by those fundamental principles of sustainability and affordability. And fairly also looking at the value of every job. So for the state officers, we determined the value of every job and decided on the basis of that.
All right, and now there are those that you have an advisory role, but you cannot per se determine or implement. How does that work out, given that they may trash your advice? Because really advice can either be taken to be used or can just literally be thrown into the bin.
I would tell you, and for the benefit of everybody else, the advice is constitutionally given. It's not a wish in or out of an advice. It's constitutionally anchored, and anchored on the principles that I've just outlined.
Right.
But you're advising so that you're able to afford. So if you don't take that advice, it means then you're outside the principles of affordability, of sustainability, and yet that is what is given to SRC. You will probably benefit from also the ruling that was done by court in the recent case,
right,
the landmark case of the teachers. And within the appeal, they of course went into the constitution, the interpretation of the same. Is SRC's advice mandatory? And the answer is yes. I'll tell you absolutely. Because if that was not considered, you can imagine the kind of structures we will be having. We will be back to where we were. I want to believe that the wage bill sustainability now is an issue because nobody ever cared to know whether we can afford, whether the economic situation of the country can sustain the same or not. So that advice is given by SRC in consideration of all those factors that I've just mentioned. And for that to work, it therefore has to be mandatory. And that was given by the court, and the chief, the AG too, reaffirmed the same position, that it can only be mandatory because of the principles and the outcome of the advice that has to be undertaken. So I would tell you the advice equally is mandatory.
Is almost binding. But now
it
looking
is
at
absolutely binding.
Binding. Now, given that that be the case, if we take, for instance, just the case you mentioned of the teachers' unions and the row that they had, we saw that TSC did not take the advice but went to court to try and overturn that. How does SRC deal with that, given that you've said it's mandatory, it's constitutional, and again, given the fact that you're coming to the conclusion that this is what can be affordable is based on certain principles. When they overturn that, we are risking having the wage bill go beyond sustainable levels. So how does
I get you, because I think we went through all, you know, the gymnastics and what have you within the court. But eventually, we went back to where SRC was. And our advice was, let's not change anything for now because the economy cannot sustain that. And the court reaffirmed that and said SRC had a case because their position was, the advice was mandatory, and therefore we have to go back to the advice of SRC. TSC have also complied on the same. I think they are going to court was basically to undo what the labor court had initially done. And the position of the union was SRC's advice is not mandatory, so we can operate without the advice of SRC. But that, I think, has been put right by the court, and so we move with that harmony and stability of respecting the provisions of the Constitution.
Okay, let's move to other areas that SRC has been given oversight over and advises or determines, and this is public offices. And we recently saw the case of fake mileage claims done by MPs, and that, of course, is still going on.
Right.
And this, I think you've mentioned even the statement that we've just played now, there are other bodies which are there to deal with that. Can SRC do anything about that, given that you've given the advice, but we see there's still people who use loopholes to try and, defraud the system?
Yeah. I would tell you, policies developed, drafted to address issues and problems and challenges. Because what you want to apply here is a standard measure across. And for you to have a standard application of policies, you have to develop a policy to address that. Given that there is a problem in the management of mileage, SRC is looking at that. And we have actually invited the Parliamentary Service Commission to sit with us because they are the operators of the system. We advised them, if there is any abuse, we want them to own that. Right. And we've said it's good to dialogue. Let's get to the table. Let's get to understand why you cannot operate within the parameters and the advice of SRC. And yet, you would interpret that this is also individual abuse, because it's not Parliament that's abusing, it's individuals within Parliament. We have individuals that have written and said, we are unhappy with the way that this mileage is being claimed, because there are those that are claiming way above. Even when they don't travel, they claim. So is that about SRC? It's not. I think it's a very integrity issues that unless the individuals that have been put into positions do not honor, the kind of the privileges that they have been given to them, and they abuse the same. Truly, it's about the individual. And I think it's high time we hold every individual responsible and accountable for the resources that have been placed within themselves. But for SRC, we are picking that up. If it's been abused, we have the responsibility to set and regularly review. I can assure you, and wait for this, we will review.
You'll review.
We will review.
Okay, now, and maybe just to step aside from SRC mandate, because I know when it comes to prosecution and all that, but you as an individual and with the principles and values that you have grown up with, what do you see bedevils us as a country, given that these legislators are the people we have given the mandate to manage our resources? Yet we find that, of course, as you've mentioned, they are individuals, but all the same, they're individuals who are abusing the system.
Right.
What do we need to do as a country to sort this out?
It's a very sad scenario. It pains me every single day. I see the leaders we have placed in positions taking advantage of the same and abusing the resources that have been placed within their hands. I think it's a culture that we have come up with over time. The reason being that when we elect leaders, when we place them within positions, we have created little gods within ourselves. That they are supposed to amass wealth. They are the ones to own every little property around us. They are the ones to hand over to us, the little handouts. So in a way, we've built it up as a country, a culture where we think leaders are supposed to own it, leaders are supposed, therefore, to return to us in little portions because they kind of direct the resources of this country. I want to believe within the new constitution and the establishment of the various agencies that are supposed to share these resources in terms of ensuring that it reaches the greater public, that this is changing the scenario. Just the fact that SRC in itself is there and removes the conflict of interest from the previous leaders, in itself a transformation. So I am believing in this new constitution, that there is a transformation, that there is somebody that will tell you, watch over what you're doing, in the oversight role that we are playing. And slowly, this will be fished out. I am concerned that we have not picked up an individual and taken them to court. I am hoping the system and the agencies that are given the responsibility to follow up any misuse, any abuse, will do their jobs as is expected. Because I believe the minute you pick one leader and you make them accountable for the misuse, for the abuse, then it will be a warning to all those others who probably might want to be following suit. I was reading something about the new president of Tanzania, and I'm getting so impressed that within a very short time, they are closing up.
With months.
Within months, they're closing up on those loopholes that have held. The leadership has been more creating wealth for the few, and the majority of the Kenyans remaining poor. So if that can be changed, and our responsibility as SRC is ensuring that we manage that wage bill, because when you manage the wage bill, then you have more resources for development and therefore benefiting the 40 million plus Kenyans.
Okay, in Kenya we have a tendency and a habit to always shift blame and always think the person who should sort it out is the other person.
Right.
You as an individual and a very influential individual, may I say, as the SRC chair in Kenya, what can you do as in your capacity to see that there is change, especially when it comes to corruption? And even just, having people amass, because that seems to be, like you've mentioned, a culture.
Right, right.
From an individual capacity.
I have gone around the counties, and part of my passionate appeal has been the management of the resources. I think probably every county that I have visited, my call has been, can we manage the resources so that the tiniest of the individual within your county can make a difference? I have met with all the leadership. I have met with our elected leaders, and they know my position. They probably at the point of our discussions have understood the fact that I stand for shared resources. I stand for honesty. In fact, they know that if you have to go to Mrs. Serem, the obvious thing is whatever she stands for, you will not change. And this is what I also, it's the values that I have imparted even within our commission, that we would not draw anything that is outside what we have said. We have to operate within the very honest, best practice management, and this is what is applicable even within my commission.
Okay. Looking at our MPs there and how much they earn, they're probably one of the best paid MPs in the world. Given our economy, is there a balance there?
Talk of yes in the world, I believe so. For reason that they may at this point look at whatever they are drawing, because they still think SRC was very unfair to them. Because we truly dropped that. For an MP to earn 532,000. And that has to be taxed. They wouldn't believe that that is a possibility. It's unfair on account of the system and the culture that we have had. I have gone to our counties, and every time you have an MP is, in a function, you find the entire Kenyans, the public, moving to them. I have ABCD, I have
with
children.
Issues.
Yeah, with issues. So my position is we need to change the standard of living for our public, for our people, for our communities, so that they cease to be dependent on our MPs.
So are you justifying their wage based on the fact that
I'm not justifying. I am saying it's a transformation. Wherever I have gone, I have talked to the public, and I have told them whatever I have given to the MPs is their salary. It's supposed to manage their day-to-day operations, to pay their school fees, to take their children to school, to take them for medical attention.
It's a salary,
It is a salary
like anybody else.
It's a salary like
pay
anybody
your
else.
rent, your mortgage,
So please
whatever.
allow them to live their life. You know, much of what you should be expecting is, how do we improve our standard of living? Can we start projects? Can we improve our operations? Can we improve our farm management? Because we have enough resources in this country. Most of our counties are a host of resources. They have never been exploited. If our leaders were able to kind of change our lifestyle and make people go back to working, we are able to generate enough and ensure that it is shared across. You know, we absolutely should not be having a child suffering from malnutrition. We should not be having people dying out of hunger. We should be having everybody going to school if we manage the resources that we have. So I want to believe that whatever we paid for now, given the kind of culture that we have, it's still adequate, but we have enough to improve in terms of the revenue generation.
Okay. All right. Just a quick reminder, in case you have any questions, I can see some coming via Twitter. Also, the phone lines are now open, and you can feel free to call if you've got a question for the SRC Chair, Serem. Feel free to do that. I'll come to your questions briefly. But one of the mandates, Madam Serem, of the SRC is to harmonize the salaries of public officers and state officers.
Right.
Would you say that you've achieved that so far, or does it still need a bit of tweaking for it to finally get
It still
away?
needs, it's quite a job. You have to understand, Michael, that we inherited a structure that had a lot of issues. You know, there was a lot of disharmony. There were lots of disparities. The entire salary system had no relativity at all. But when we brought in the issue of job evaluation, for the state officers, I would say we have sorted that matter. Because we reduced the compression ratio, which is the salary between the highest within the state officers and the lowest, to 10%. That was 53 before. We are moving into the other public officers. And the beginning point is to create stability. Because the minute we have several bodies, you know, clamoring for higher wages, it becomes very difficult to harmonize. But you notice that just as we came in, the public sector, the civil service structure had been harmonized. The only body that we brought in to harmonize were the teachers, because they were one scale behind, 1 year behind. And that was done in 2012, 2013. We are now moving to do a job evaluation. The job evaluation will bring in the relative worth of every position within the public sector. And that will and the disparities that have been existing within the salary structure in the public sector. It is a process. I would tell you it's going to take time. It's not something that will be an event, but just the job evaluation in itself is a major milestone in resolving the issues that have existed within the salary structures.
Okay, we'll come to some of the challenges you're facing and maybe the gains that you think you've made so far. But let's take a call from Wanja, who's calling from Machakos. Good morning, Wanja. To your question, please.
Morning, sir.
Morning.
I'm very happy to see Madam Serem there on the TV.
Thank you.
It is good that she's saying that she's a good Christian.
Sorry?
It is good that she's saying she's a staunch Christian. So we expect her to bring a lot of variety in the government, especially the salary department.
Okay.
And wish her well.
Okay.
But I have a question about TSC and the secretariat. Because TSC staff with on job group G is earning 35,000, and a teacher on the same grade is earning 17,000. And that was the battle between the teachers and the TSC and the union and the government.
Okay.
And that salary was increased last year, December, by the advice of Serem. So if I did the same job group.
Sorry, I missed that.
I'm saying, the advice to increase the salary from 17,000 to 35,000 for secretariat members who are in the same cadre with the teachers was given out by Serem.
Okay.
But when the issue comes for the teachers who are in the same group to be paid like so, she says the salary is not affordable.
Okay, I'll need you to get to the question. What do you want to know from Madam Serem?
I want to know how comes that she's saying that it's fair to harmonize the salary, but on one side, she is be paid more
Okay.
in the same job group
Okay.
and the same qualification. Yet now, like now, the graduate in in the teacher's service,
Okay.
they are earning less by almost a half what is being earned by certificate holders.
In the same job group. I think I've got your point, sir. In the interest of time, can we end the question there?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, there you have it. The same job group, Group G, one earning 35,000 and another one earning 17,000.
Okay.
And yet we're talking about harmonizing. The same.
Specific question.
Yes.
I think we are missing the point here, because we have the Teacher Service Commission as the employer. Yeah. And indeed, when you have an employer, you would not pay the employer the same as those that are the employees. So literally, the TSC is a commission like any other.
And it's an independent commission.
And it's an independent commission. They have employees who are now the teachers at different levels. And for the benefit of this individual, we're moving in to do the job evaluation. I think ours was not that we will not review the teachers' salaries. Far from it. In fact, we did that. Over the last few years of existence, we have brought the teachers to the level where everybody else is in terms of the civil servants, because they were not paid certain allowances, which we did. And I was surprised that nobody ever mentioned that. But we did that. We're moving in to do a job evaluation. And that in itself will be bringing in the relative worth of both the employer as TSC and the teachers, and to the rest of the other employers. Because like you have the Public Service Commission, they are the employer. We have the rest of the civil servants being the employees of the Public Service Commission and other entities as well. But the job evaluation will be able to bring out all these disparities at the end of the day.
Okay, but I think this brings us back to the question I'd asked earlier,
Yes.
Which is an advisory role. Because like the gentleman who's called, or let me say on behalf of other teachers who are in job group G,
Right.
who are earning 17,000, despite the fact that SRC may have given job group G 35,000 to others, can the SRC come in to enforce that the teachers should earn a certain amount? Or is that left to TSC? Because again, it is an independent body.
What does SRC come to do? SRC sets the framework that for affordability, you have to pay within these ranges.
Right.
It will be upon
The employer.
the employer
In this case,
and
TSC.
the union to sit down and agree. The TSC will obviously be operating within the advice of SRC, that we cannot go beyond this. Number one, because we can't afford anything beyond that. Number two, that there is a benchmark across, because we're saying the civil service, the public entity, has to have some relativity. And so we're setting benchmarks, because there will therefore be no clamor that, why can't I be paid like, you know. Once that is done, then it will be their duty to operate and to negotiate within the advice of SRC. And the advice gives them a range within which they can negotiate.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's another question here from John Douglas. On Twitter, I'll come to John Douglas. Let me take a call from Grace in Nyeri. Good morning, Grace.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well, thank you for calling.
Yeah, I'm from Nyeri, and I'm following your topics.
You are?
I'm following what is happening.
Uh-huh.
Now, I wanted to, not really a question, but just to let Sarah know this.
Okay.
I'm a teacher by profession. We don't fear the job evaluation process because I also believe teachers do a lot of work.
Correct.
And when it comes to harmonizing the salaries, we would also want to be considered just the way they consider the TSC secretariat. And we also put into consideration the amount of work we do. Otherwise, we are okay with the job evaluation, and I believe we are doing good work.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Grace. They're commending and saying that teachers, I guess she's speaking on behalf of several, that they actually appreciate the job evaluation.
Believe me, we do. We appreciate that. And indeed, the reason for establishing SRC, because prior to that, we had, different individuals, and depending on whether you have a strong union or a strong employer, then your placement in terms of salary comes in, follows. SRC is there to look at every individual, and teachers are part of our key stakeholders. We cannot wish that out. And by the end of the entire process, I think everybody will come to appreciate that, yes, this is what we needed. Indeed, the value within which SRC will bring in will be a benefit to the entire of the public sector. Nobody has ever done a job evaluation. Even as the unions or the employers try to set their salaries, they have absolutely no understanding on what is the value of this employee. When we ask for 100%, what is the basis of it? So this job evaluation will help both employers and the union to basically have an objective dialogue in terms of addressing the issues of salaries. And so I urge and I request all public entities to participate in this. It is for their benefit.
All right, we have Martin calling from Kitale. Good morning, Martin.
Yes, Martin Mukeri from Kitale, Moise Bridge.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm concerned in a way that why is it that whatever commission is trying to stop the Kenyan workers from being given the little increments?
Sorry, I missed your question. Could you ask that again? Your concern?
That the Serem Commission fights very hard to stop any increment to any Kenyan worker in the name of harmonization. But at the same time, the same money they stop maybe being given to the teachers, whatever, looted away through Eurobond, through scandals like the Waiguru, the one we have been hearing recently. So we really get motivated. And it's very true that if you talk to for example, the teacher fraternity, most of them are demotivated.
Okay.
Then I wonder, is this now a way of producing, making the economy better or not making the economy better?
All right. All right. Thank you very much. Some of the question was not very clear. Did you get that? No. Okay. One of the things it says is that why is it as a commission you're out, and I'll put it in quotes, to stop the increase of salary for people's salary in the name of harmonization. Maybe this is a perspective that you need to clear and make very clear to the public why you harmonize or why some cannot go up based on what you had said earlier. I think you had mentioned it, but it might just be good to emphasize why it is necessary to have wages at a certain level in the interest of the wage bill.
Yeah. I think as I started off and looking at our mandate, one of the critical consideration is issues of affordability and sustainability. And just ensuring that Kenya operates within a sustainable economy. It is for the benefit of the entire public sector, because if we operate in a manner that we are not sustainable and we consume beyond our means, that I can assure you, because other countries have gone that direction, that we will reach a point that the government will not be able to pay the wages. So we are here to harmonize for your future, to ensure that it's able to pay now and into the future. Why do we harmonize? We're saying we work within the same economy. We are operating more or less within the same terms and conditions of service. If we pay others higher, we've seen the effect of it. This has created a lot of disharmony, and it's created a lot of demotivation within the public sector. When you do harmony on the basis of the value of the jobs, then it brings stability. And there is justification and merit in every review. We have not stopped reviews. We have said, let's create systems. Let's balance it out. Let's bring everybody to the same level. The next move will be compensated on the basis of the value of each of those positions. There will absolutely be satisfaction when you know that the employer that has employed you is paying you for the value of your service, that the teacher will be paid for the value of their jobs.
Service. Okay.
That every other individual within the public sector, the doctors for that matter, even the prison officers that nobody talks about, are also paid considering, you know, the value
that
and
they
the worth
bring
of
on
their
board.
jobs.
Okay, there's a question here from Samutonya. This is via Twitter, and he says, if he's asking if all commissions are supposed to be harmonized because JSC, PSC, and IEBC earn higher than the other commissions.
Right. They are supposed to be harmonized. I think you need to also understand that we came in when certain other commissions had already been established. And the principle of salary review is you cannot reduce what somebody is earning at that point. We have a formal and official structure, and the minute the individuals that are earning higher exit the institutions, that will balance out from those that will be entering, because they will get into the official formal setup of SRC. IBC was in place. We have the formal structure for IBC, but the individuals earning may be higher because they were given those salaries and it was within their contract. We could not have gone against the contract that was set earlier. But anybody joining, talk of IBC, anybody joining, of course CIC is coming to an end. If there was any other new system coming in through the CIC, they will be earning the same salary as the rest of the commissions.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's also a question here from Joel Odero, and Joel is asking, why has she not talked about the increase in wage bill since the president increased the number of PSs to 41? Maybe your comments on that in terms of how does that affect the wage bill from when the PSs were increased?
That's a very valid consideration. I would tell you, it's not just about the PSS. It's a matter we are addressing as SRC. I'm actually doing a note to all employing agencies, because since we came in, there have been numerous other positions that have been established.
Created.
Not just at the national level, but at the county level. We all understand that wage bill is a factor of two variables, the value and the numbers. SRC's mandate looks at the value. We do not have a mandate or a responsibility over the numbers. Yet that has a direct effect on the wage bill. So we're trying to relate, you know, establish a dialogue with all other employing agencies. I'm doing a circular to actually the employing agencies to be concerned about the growth in terms of numbers. Because whereas that may be an easy thing to do, that you establish a position and the next thing you are establishing the numbers and employing people into it, obviously that has a direct effect on the wage bill. This creation of all these entities and positions was so that we work in harmony. I am rocking in a discussion, looking at the numbers, and that also works with, if you remember, the gaps exercise that the Ministry of Devolution and the county government was undertaking, cleaning up the payroll, because that also has an effect on the wage bill issue, that we have to clean it up. We have the correct numbers in place, we have the correct positions, they are earning the correct salaries, there is no duplication, because duplication also raises the cost of employment into unmanageable levels.
Right.
So when we all work together, because SRC can't do everything, but we will be in harmony and
maybe
linking up
as
with
we
the rest
close,
of the
because I'm
others.
told by the director time is really up, but do we see a time maybe in the future where SRC can actually also influence to some degree the numbers? Because it's one thing to say we're trying to harmonize, but when, like you've said, when we have the numbers soaring, then of course that's going to have an effect, and it may also affect the affordability.
Right, it is, it truly is. It may not be an absolute responsibility over the numbers, but working in harmony with the rest of the other agencies, with them understanding the effect of the decisions they make. Because I believe that my decision ought to contribute positively to the management of the resources of this country. And if we all buy into the same principle, then I want to believe before you decide, before you set, before you employ, you want to link it up with the affordability. You want to link it up with SRC so that we can determine whether that is going to be sustainable.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, because of time, we'll have to end it right there, but we still had many questions for you. But thank you so much for coming in. And that is Person of Interest, and that's none other than Sarah Serem, Salaries and Remuneration Commission Chair. Thank you very much for coming in. And it is good to know you, both the side that we know from the news and also the other side of you. So thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, Michael.
All right. That's where we wind up Morning Express this morning. Thank you very much for your participation and joining us in the show. Do stay with us right here on KTN News. We've got News Hour coming up in just a bit.